Israel has recently celebrated its 69th birthday. This year is also an anniversary of 25 years since the renewal of the diplomatic relations between Israel and Serbia. How will embassy mark these important dates?
Yes, this year on the 2nd of May we celebrated our Independence Day, and we decided to do something different because also we're celebrating 25 years of diplomatic relationships between Serbia and Israel, and we thought how to reach more people. And we realized the best way to do is to do different projects in different types of areas. So on the one hand we concentrated on cooperation with NALED, which is a really good organization and gathers all the different municipalities around Serbia. And we managed to produce a series of lectures of branding the city, of women empowerment, and of self-governance. And we still gonna continue with this throughout the year. And the second part of it would be to connect more with the civil society. So we try to think who are the main places that could benefit with help, and also to get outside and see Serbia in a whole. And we managed to concentrate in Vranje and Čačak with the help of an Israeli company, Kavim, and also in different places for children with disabilities, for people with disabilities in Belgrade. And with that we hope to contribute more to the relationship both with the civil society and with the governmental institutions.
Mm-hmm. According to your opinion, where is Israel present the most in Serbia? Which field? What do you think?
Well, first of all, we must mention the Israeli investments here that count to up to $2 billion in Serbia. But more than the money, what's important is the reputation and the way that Israeli companies are presented here. And we're very proud of it because they have a really good reputation. They're doing great projects from commercial to residential, and we see their presence here and we're very pleased with that. On the other hand, we have a lot of cultural activities. The embassy is involved with producing its own cultural activities, but also cooperating with the main festivals. So for example, we had presence in the Belgrade Jazz Festival, in the Belgrade Dance Festival, in Fest, in Beldox, in many different types of festivals. And also we produce our own cultural activities such as From Israel with Love in February, which was all about the modern Israeli culture. And also our film week, which is known and loved by people here, which we'll also be producing later this year. Mm-hmm. We found out that there's many interest and a lot of love for Israeli publishers and Israeli books and writers. And we're very happy to discover that some books were already published, and the embassy also supports the publishing and the translation of other books to Serbian, so more people can enjoy great Israeli literature.
Mm-hmm. So where do you see then the room for strengthening the bilateral cooperations?
So first of all, Serbia and Israel enjoys really great bilateral cooperation and really good relationships. And when we look at Serbia from our point of view, we see so much potential when it comes to the high-tech and the agro-tech and those spheres that Israel can bring something special and the know-how and connect with Serbia in that way. And embassy is engaged in different types of projects when it comes to the high-tech community, and we would really like to promote agro-technology here as well. And we see similarities between Serbia and Israel when it comes to those issues, and we see how Serbia can really benefit of such technologies and such know-how that Israeli has. And we, of course, will do everything to promote it. Another area is tourism. An interesting fact that in the past year, Israel introduced 4 direct flights from Israel to Belgrade. and they're full flights. Many visitors are coming to explore Belgrade. Many visitors are interested in the history of Belgrade, but not only. Many people don't know that a lot of the history connection between Israel and Serbia was established here in Zemun. The grandparents of Theodor Herzl were born in Zemun, and not many Israelis know this, and not many Serbian people know this. And now, with the growing number of Israeli tourists, we see that there is a growing interest in the Jewish history of the place of Belgrade, but also in Serbia.
Okay, so when you mentioned Herzl, I read on your website that this year Israel is marking and the next year Jubilee years of important historical events. Could you explain what are these?
Yes, sure. This year and next year, it's a series of dates, very important dates for the establishment of the State of Israel, which we are celebrating and mentioning, which, as I mentioned before, has a specific connection to Serbia. So the first one is the Zionist Congress that took place in Basel 120 years ago, that came with the idea of what the Jewish people should do in order to create their own state. And that was backed up after at the Balfour Declaration, which is really interesting because the first nation that was accepting the Balfour Declaration was actually Serbia. And that also, it's a fact that not a lot of people know. So Serbia was also a very big part of creating the modern Israeli state as we know it today. Then at 1947 we had the UN resolution which established two states, decided on the partition plan of two states. Then we have in 1967 the date that Jerusalem was unified again after the war. And the last date that we're mentioning is 1977, when Anwar Sadat arrived to Israel from Egypt for an historical visit, which then led basically to the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, which is of much importance to the Israel state as our closest neighbors, basically.
Mm-hmm. The former ambassador Yossi Levy had a big wish to bring Netanyahu to Belgrade. Unfortunately, the visit was cancelled 2 times. Is there any chance for us to see him here or some other important guests from Israel?
Yes, of course. We're at the embassy. We want to show and reflect those great relationships that Serbia and Israel has with a visit of a high official, whether the president or the prime minister or a minister. And we're working really hard for that to happen, and we hope that we will be able to see this visit very soon.
Regarding EU integration on Serbia, what is your impression? How would you describe it? Why is it important?
Well, for us, talking from the Israeli point of view, the integration of Serbia into the EU, it's not only important as an integration, it's important first and foremost for Serbia itself. And we see this, which with every reform that is happening towards the EU integration, we see it as beneficiary to Serbia. And we of course support the integration. And also from our side, there's many agreements and economic agreements that are now that we possess with the EU, which we don't have with Serbia, and that could be a great way to enhance economic cooperation even from that point of view.
Super. And at the end, tell us, how do you feel in Belgrade? Where do you live? How do you spend your free time? Is it true that Belgrade and Tel Aviv are very similar cities when it comes to energy and people?
Yes, I can definitely say that the Serbian people and the Israeli people have a lot of similarities. When people were asking me if I feel at home, so I must say that I felt at home after 1 week of being here. Israel, specifically Tel Aviv and Belgrade, also have the same atmosphere and the same feeling to it. It's a lively city, and I'm lucky enough to live in the city center, so I can really feel that atmosphere. And I think that people in Israel should know more about the nightlife that Belgrade has to offer, the restaurants, the cafes, the kafanas, which is really important part of the Serbian tradition. And the more tourists would come, I'm sure they will enjoy and bring their friends after spending time here.